Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm your host, Jakari Jackson. It is July 12th, 2016, and here's a look at our top stories.
Tonight, the so-called anti-Wall Street candidate has officially announced his endorsement for Hillary Clinton.
I have come here to make it as clear as possible as to why I am endorsing Hillary Clinton.
Bernie Sanders folds and wants his followers to vote for the Queen of Wall Street. Then, a petition to declare Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization has quickly reached 100,000+ signatures and growing. Plus, more inside baseball on the mindset of FBI boss James Comey, who not only recently cleared Hillary Clinton on all charges, but we now know that Comey has connections to the Clinton Foundation. All that plus much more up next on the INFOWARS Nightly News.
And welcome back. Recently, a petition launched to recognize Black Lives Matter as an official terrorist organization. And if you go to whitehouse.gov, you can see that it has over 100,000 signatures. Now, many people are going to find out the hard way that when you do petitions on whitehouse.gov, they're just basically a suggestion box. Like if you go to a restaurant or a movie theater and they say, hey, put your suggestions here, it doesn't really mean anything. There's been many petitions on whitehouse.gov that even though they got the required number of signatures, the White House didn't even bother to address. Some things were just, kind of goofy, funny things like build a real Death Star. Other things that are a little more serious, they said, we don't care. So take that for what it is. But now I want to spend a little bit of time talking about Black Lives Matter in people's view of them as a terrorist organization, because I think like anything, there's many assets and facets to the organization. And I'll give you the example of the police, right? So you can see plenty of videos out there of police doing wrong. Police shooting some unarmed guy in the back, or choking a guy to death because he was selling cigarettes, or, beating a guy to death over the course of 20 minutes while he is screaming for, mercy and for his daddy to come and save him, and on and on and on. And that's one aspect of the police, but it's not the aspect of the police. On the flip side, you have the videos of cops, saving little cats out of trees, or walking kids home in a bad neighborhood, or giving boots to a homeless man. So yes, while the bad stuff happens, also the good stuff happens as well, and you can't just pick one side or the other to view the police departments as in the United States of America. Conversely, when you talk about a group like Black Lives Matter, I've personally witnessed these guys in various cities around the country, start fires or, loot shopping centers or, do other heinous things. Also, you see the videos of them jumping on hoods of cars, interrupting veteran ceremonies, harassing people for having lunch just because they're white or whatever else. But on the flip side of that, I've also personally seen these guys go out and march peacefully without incident. I'm seeing them have candlelight vigils, prayer meetings at churches, and on and on and on. But that stuff doesn't get the type of publicity that the negative stuff does, because it's not as sensational. It doesn't sell as many newspapers, or doesn't get as many clicks on YouTube. So while I do recognize, and I'm definitely not trying to downplay the bad things that Black Lives Matter has done, I also recognize the good things that don't get as much publicity. Also, when you talk about a group like Black Lives Matter, to make a very, very loose comparison, when you think about a group like Anonymous, where anybody can be anonymous, all you have to do is go buy a Guy Fawkes mask, turn off the lights, shoot a video and put it on YouTube, and you're considered a part of Anonymous. In a similar way, anybody can go buy a Black Lives Matter t-shirt, and since there's no governing body, nobody to say, yes, you can be in, no, your membership is revoked, anybody can be a part of the group. So you have to take all this in consideration when you just want to say the group in general is a terrorist organization. Also, another thing I want to point out, just being personally at many of these events, a lot of times when there's, one guy wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt in a rally, usually it's more than one, but just using that example, if there's one and something bad happens, like those examples I said, people jumping on cars or rioting or looting buildings, Black Lives Matter in general gets the blame, even if those people weren't self-identifying as Black Lives Matter's members. Because once again, when you have something that's just anybody can sign up for or say they're a part of, when they see these guys on TV with the pants down looting the Quick Trip or whatever it is, did you stop and ask these guys, are they Black Lives Matter? Do they self-identify as Black Lives Matter? Do they put Black Lives Matter things on their Facebook and Twitter pages? So the point I'm trying to make here is every time you see a black person at a rally doing something negative doesn't mean that they're affiliated with Black Lives Matter. And that's the point I'm really trying to drive home here, because I think while I do recognize the bad things that they've done, oftentimes it's such a generalized thing that they just assume that these people are affiliated with Black Lives Matter or have Black Lives Matter sympathies, when sometimes they really don't. It's just maybe there were Black Lives Matter there, but there are other people who weren't affiliated with the group at all. They also could have been doing good or bad things. So by and large, I think with a wide brush to paint them as a terrorist organization, I think is too much. It'd be, like I said, to say the police are terrorists. You got good police, you got bad police. You got good people at these rallies, you got bad people at these rallies. And just to blanket call them one thing or another, I think is a very crude oversimplification. But that's my thought on that. And only time to tell, because things are getting pretty hot in the country right now. People trying to start race wars for whatever reason. I think that they think is a good idea. It's failed rather spectacularly. If you guys remember the case of Dylan Roof down in Charleston, South Carolina, his goal when he shot up the church was to start a race war. Nobody was buying that, at least down there. And, it's a very peaceful time. I was actually very glad to be down there and see how the city decided to turn to positivity instead of turning on itself and rioting and burning stuff. I think the worst thing that happened while I was there was a statue got spray painted. And if that's the worst thing that happens in Charleston, South Carolina, I think you guys should consider yourself very lucky. That it's a little different in the city of Dallas, Texas. They say they've had a long history of questionable police activities. A lot of the officers have recently left Dallas. I believe in May alone, they had 40 or so officers leave and go to various departments. More left in June, if I remember correctly. So it's a big problem that's not going to be solved anytime soon, but just the general terrorist label, I don't think is accurate and just an oversimplification. Now let's talk about some other things going on overseas. We see that the Chinese president has ordered the People's Liberation Army to prepare for combat as a measure against possible hostile U.S. action in the South China Sea, after an international tribunal ruled that Beijing had no exclusive control over the area. The Permanent Court of Arbitration said that there was no evidence that China had historically exercised exclusive control over the waters or resources, reports the BBC. China responded by labeling the ruling ill-founded and refused to be bound by it. However, behind the scenes, the Chinese president fears that the U.S. could seize on the ruling to justify aggressive military maneuvers in the area and has ordered PLA forces to prepare for war. China's Navy has repeatedly issued warnings to U.S. surveillance planes flying over the region. In more domestic news, people are feeling the burn, but not in the way that they did earlier this year. They're feeling burned by Bernie Sanders with his endorsement of Madam Clinton. And we see that people are taking to Twitter, they're taking to their social media platforms to say, "I am so disappointed that Bernie Sanders sold out millions and many of us fell for it." One former fan tweeted, "Never again. Personally, I don't think I will support Hillary. I don't trust her," a Sanders fan told Fortune. "I can't see myself backing someone I don't believe in." And it goes on and on from there. Because if you guys recall, Bernie Sanders was supposed to be the guy who was anti-establishment. He's going to come in and he's going to bust up the banks, and he's not like these other career politicians who got all the dirt and the skeletons in the closet. And then he turns around and he endorses the person who has all the dirt and the skeletons in the closet. And I'm not a Sanders supporter, nor was I ever, but I did like him more than Mrs. Clinton, because in a very similar way to Obama, I wanted to believe in what he was saying and what his intentions were, because people always say, he says he's going to do this, he says he wants to do that. Look at the presidents throughout history. Even if they really wanted to do all the things they said in their campaign speeches, how many of those things did they actually accomplish? Just look at Obama, for example. He said he's going to shut down Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay is still well and open. He said he's going to end these foreign conflicts. Foreign conflicts are still going on. He said he's going to repeal the Patriot Act, or at least not re-sign the Patriot Act. He re-signed the Patriot Act, threw in the NDAA for good measure, persecution of journalists, and on and on and on, and all these things in the most transparent administration in United States history. And it's such a misnomer, I can't even say it without laughing. In a similar way, if I wanted to believe Bernie Sanders could actually do these things, it doesn't mean he'd actually get them done. But to see him endorse Hillary Clinton, I'm really not a fan of that. I would have much preferred him just rode off into the sunset, did his own thing. He's an old guy, but maybe he could have ran again in the next election cycle, but who knows? And I think he's pretty much scorched the earth with his own supporters at this point. So if he did want to come out for another run, he pretty much shot himself in the foot. But as we're talking about all things Clinton, let's talk about the FBI director, Comey, and his decision not to prosecute Clinton. And we have this article from Kurt Nimmo, who dictates how the FBI boss is connected to the Clinton Foundation. On Monday, Republicans sent a letter demanding to know why Comey didn't recommend federal charges against Hillary Clinton over her use of private email servers. Clinton clearly placed our nation's secrets in peril, the letter states. The letter also mentions emails deleted by Clinton and forensically recovered by the FBI. They want to know if the emails had anything to do with the Clinton Foundation. Comey did not recommend federal charges in part because he is connected to the Clinton Foundation through HSBC. Comey was appointed director of HSBC Holdings in March 2013. Now, once again, when we think about Bernie Sanders, he's going to bust up the big banks. He's not the career politician. He's not like all these other guys. He's an outsider. He's for you. He's going to fight the 1%. He's going to do all this stuff. He's going to give you free college and all the rest of it. And then he comes back and backs Mrs. Clinton, who wants to be in good company with the big banks, who's being funded by the big banks, who has all the things, who is exactly the opposite on paper, so we're told, of a Bernie Sanders, and now he's supporting her just to support the party line. This isn't the type of guy that I'd want to support, and this is why I realized this so many months ago. I was like, well, you know, I don't think he's all that much different. Yeah, he can say all the talking points. He can go after his niche type of audience, the young college students, all this. But at the end of the day, I think he's a career politician like any of these other guys, and that's exactly what the guy turned out to be. He showed his true colors in a similar way that Ted Cruz did many months ago. Now we see Mr. Sanders coming out and supporting Hillary Clinton, not saying let's go after her for the emails, even though he had previously mentioned that in his debates with her. We need to talk about the emails. We need to look at some of these other things. And now at the end of the day, when the rubber hits the road, he's willing to back his party no matter what. And this is my issue with political parties here in the United States of America, because people ask me, are you Republican? Are you a Democrat? Are you a Libertarian? My views are more libertarian in nature, but I don't support any one party because I don't want to be, you know, that straight ticket guy. I don't want to vote for a party or support a party just because I'm registered that on my voting log. That doesn't make sense to me, because I don't want to back some guy that I don't believe in or back a policy that I don't believe in just because they write it on their ticket. If you want to be a true X, you have to agree with everything that's on this list. Well, I don't agree with that. Well, you can't be in our club. Like, fine, I won't be in your club. You go run your club the way you want to. I'm not going to participate in this. I'm going to be like George Carlin this election. I'm going to sit back, watch everybody else wreck the country. I'm going to say, this was your fault. I had nothing to do with it. And this guy sent me something on Twitter a few months ago. And he was telling me about, well, he was asking me why I didn't support Trump. And I gave him my reasons. You guys know those reasons. But he's like, this isn't the time for a conscientious vote. I was like, bro, it's been time for a conscientious vote ever since Kennedy got shot in the head. Because ever since then, and possibly even before then, you get all these people scrambling to their parties to save them. I don't like this guy, but I'm gonna vote for this guy because he's in my party. Or I don't like her, but I'm gonna vote for her because she's in my party. And at the end of the day, you get these guys who are handpicked by the same elites, or selected by the same elites, who have pretty much the same agendas. You look at people in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. You see Marco Rubio and Hillary Clinton were being funded by the same people. Do you really think the people at the top really care who gets into the election? I don't think so. They have their hands in each pocket, and you can debate to an extent Trump. I do think the guy's a little bit different, but at the same time, he's not somebody I'd write home about and put all my faith in personally. But continuing on, we're going to talk about some more Clinton news. The Attorney General Lynch has defended her social chat with Bill Clinton and has refused to comment on facts of the investigation, but decided to some time ago to rubber stamp the FBI decision. Now, this is a classic conflict of interest. I give the example of jury duty. If you get selected for jury duty and you go in to the courthouse and they say, hey, do you know person X? And you say, yeah, I know person X. You know, we hang out, we talk about our kids, we talk about sports. They say, excuse me, sir, you're let go. We don't want you on our jury. You're not a fair and impartial juror. Meanwhile, you have the Attorney General of the United States of America who's ready to rubber stamp, and she's good friends with the Clintons to the fact where they can sit around and talk about their grandchildren. That is a blatant conflict of interest. Moving quickly now, I want to talk about some of the recent shootings that happened here in the United States of America, and in particular, a certain actor. And when I say this, I'm not blaming this actor. I'm just using him as a bellwether, as an example. He came out and he blamed the NRA for the Michigan courthouse